There is a push for more regulations for a substance becoming more popular. Kratom is not regulated on a federal level, so many states, including Florida, are putting restrictions in place. Our Capitol Bureau reporter has more.
Every day, I get a phone call from someone who's either addicted or has a loved one who has died of kratom. We are ground zero for a crisis that is going to eclipse the opioid crisis if things don't change quickly. People are dying at an accelerating rate due to kratom because it is unregulated, unsafe, and often adulterated with fentanyl or other substances that can cause serious injury or death. One of those deaths is Matthew Eller, who we're going to talk about. So Matthew Eller has a toxicology report. He had one drug in his system, kratom. He died of metrogeny overdose and nothing else. He had no prescription drugs, no illegal drugs, no nothing in his system other than metrogeny. That is what killed him. That is what the toxicology report says. That is what the medical examiner says. That is what the autopsy report confirmed. Proponents of kratom, or I should say kratom addicts, love kratom. They claim that it does everything from cure brain injuries to anxiety to you name it. The reality is that they are addicts. And those addicts are very passionate about keeping kratom available in its current form. Those advocates resort to intimidation tactics because they don't have the ability to fight on the science or on the law. It's the old saying, if you can't attack the facts, attack the person. Kratom addicts will get out there and they will say, oh, I'm sure that he was on some other hard drugs and that's why he died. He must have had underlying health conditions. And so when someone like Matthew Eller comes up who has nothing else in his system, young, healthy, vibrant, no underlying health problems, what do they do instead? Well, we can't attack that now. Let's go after his family. Let's intimidate them. Let's threaten them, and let's see if we can make them stop talking about it by doing that. And we're not going to let their bullying tactics work. Matthew Eller, his mother is right here, and this is a photo of him, and she's going to talk about Matthew and what his experience with kratom and what his life meant to her and what her loss is.
This is my son, Matthew. He thought kratom was a safe herbal product, give him energy. He was a hard worker, and he played even harder. He was my youngest of 6 children, and his brother and 4 sisters, and his stepbrother and 2 stepsisters, grandparents, cousins, aunts, uncles, all miss him dearly, and it has forever changed our lives. He didn't realize that it would kill him. He just thought it was a safe product that he could use to give him extra energy at work. And he really shouldn't have died. This should be brought to light, the dangers of kratom. And it just has forever changed my life too. And all I do is, with all of my time, is advocate about the dangers of kratom. And a lot of people say very hateful things to me to get me to stop, and I won't stop because every time I see another person die from kratom, it breaks my heart open again. Thank you.
I want to talk to you about what the other parents are experiencing when they attempt to do the brave thing that Susan is doing. What will happen is they will seek out these parents while they are grieving, and they will tell them things like, you should kill yourself. I hope that you die. If you try and take kratom away from me, we will kill you. We have legislators, we have city council members, we have mayors who have come to us and said, I'm receiving threats from these kratom advocates. What am I supposed to do about it? And the reason why is because kratom cannot win on the science, it cannot win on the medicine, and they cannot win on the facts. What this is unadulterated greed, and when anything stands in the way of them, such as parents who have lost their children, spouses who have lost their loved one, they will resort to any means that they can to protect their access to this addictive drug. My message to the kratom advocates is that you're not helping yourself and you're not helping your cause by harassing grieving parents and spouses. And if you are serious about protecting your access to kratom, it's time to get real about regulation. It's time to get real about extracts. And it's time to get real about following the science wherever it goes. If you believe in the product, then believe in the science. But don't resort to harassing and threatening grieving parents and loved ones. And also for the manufacturers, now is the time to come to the table and to self-regulate and to say we want and we're willing to accept regulation, particularly related to extracts, particularly related to the amount of 7-OH that is included in the products, and about labeling itself. The FDA has said that there is absolutely no medical usage or benefit to using Kratom. Despite that, the Kratom advocates have come out and tried to pass legislation in some places like Florida successfully that make Kratom legal despite the FDA's warning and despite the fact that Kratom has passed absolutely no scientific medicinal testing whatsoever that shows that it is able to treat or help in any medical condition. The Kratom Protection Act has no guardrails for labeling, no guardrails for dosing, no guardrails for production. And that is why it is important that people understand that this drug can kill, because Florida is about to be infiltrated with Kratom at a substantially higher level.
So there are a certain amount of manufacturers, designers, labelers, packagers, and distributors that are all headquartered in Lee County, Florida. So we're bringing this suit in Lee County, Florida, not only because that's where they have put up shop and that's where they're headquartered, but additionally because that's going to bring the attention to the Florida legislators, the Florida representatives, those that can actually influence change against this drug.
Those are my comments. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
For Susan. Did you reach out to any legislators or tell legislators about your story and Matthew's story, and what was their response?
Yes, every time there is a bill about Kratom, whether it be KCPA or ban bill, I email all of them that are in the committees, and I have got some responses, and I have been to Congress and given my story, and yeah, I have been asked for help in assisting them, and I have done so in any way I can. I will. And so right now they're trying to make it legal in Wisconsin, and they're supposed to go convene tomorrow, I believe, and I have emailed all of them, so hopefully they don't make it legal there for the sake of their people.
Why in Lee County? Why are these companies setting up shop in Lee County?
So, Kratom is illegally imported in the United States. There's an import ban. So what do? They market as tea or as coffee or as other products to get it past the borders. Then what they'll do is they'll set up these very elaborate corporate structures. So Lee County is one part of a bigger enterprise. And what will happen is that for even individual shipments, individual products, they'll set up different companies in different areas. And the idea, and sometimes there are legitimate business reasons for having elaborate corporate structures. Other times it's because you're engaged in a criminal enterprise and you're trying to shield yourself or your business from people knowing who you are and what you're doing. This trends more towards that, where we've sued almost a dozen entities in this suit, and I suspect that the number is going to double, and then it's going to double again as we continue to move up the chain of the distributors and manufacturers of this particular kratom. As we've filed suits across the country, in every single case, what we'll find is that there are shell companies at the bottom, more shell companies in the middle, and even more shell companies at the top. And it's just a matter of moving up the food chain. And typically, with the location where they set up those companies is just where the individuals who are actually behind it reside. And so what that means is that you've got individuals who are involved in importing kratom illegally right here in Florida, and particularly in Lee County. And this specific product, Happy Kratom, has already been seized at least once by the FDA and by Border Patrol for bringing in illegally labeled kratom, adulterated kratom, and dangerous kratom that just on its face should not have been brought to the United States, and has had products seized, including the product that Matthew Eller himself was taken. The FDA had came in and said, this is dangerous, this is not labeled properly, do not sell it. What did they do? They continued to sell it, and they shipped it all over the country where people like Matthew can get it, become addicted, and die. I don't know that we don't have an opinion on the regulation of marijuana, but what I can tell you is that kratom itself is dangerous and addictive, and anything that is as addictive as heroin, like kratom is, needs to go through the proper medical channels and to have an established usage and a means for people to get it. I don't support having it freely available on the shelves. I believe that if kratom calls itself a medicine, they should go through the steps to prove that it is a medicine. Otherwise, it has no purpose for being in the market at all. And Jennifer may be able to add on about the marijuana regulation.
Well, I'll step aside from marijuana just for a moment, just to comment that if there's no medicinal purpose for this drug, then we're looking at it as an actual drug. And how does Florida respond to other actual drugs? It's a controlled substance. It's codified in our statutes, and if you are caught with it, possessing it, using it, selling it, there are legal ramifications for it. We've got a drug that are being sold very freely, like we said, in health stores and tobacco stores and glass shops online that have the exact same effects of it, if not worse, depending on how much you're taking, and there's no regulation. There's no one telling you how much you can or cannot take and what the effect is going to be of that, completely unregulated and uncontrolled. So I think to even compare it or put in the same category as marijuana is making it seem less than what it is. Because if it has the same effect as a heroin, this needs to be a controlled substance and there needs to be ramifications from it.
I will add that I am certain that there are a number of marijuana-related deaths, but I'm not aware of any marijuana overdose deaths, whereas my office is filled to the brim with Kratom overdose deaths.
You mentioned that a lot of people in recovery
Yes.
are using Kratom. Was Matthew in recovery, and was he encouraged by, I mean, drug treatment centers, don't they have a responsibility here to...
What I can tell you is that drug treatment centers aren't aware of this, and this is part of why people like Susan are so important. We had hearings and other legislatures where halfway houses and drug rehabilitation people came out and explained how they need funding and resources to test for Kratom because they're seeing it constantly, but they don't have the tools and ability to test for it because the state mandates what you do and do not test for. So Florida hasn't done anything to deal with that issue, and many legislatures have not. Instead, all they've done is stamp a de facto, this is legal as long as you're over a certain age, and that's not what needs to happen in Florida. That's not good for Florida. That's not good for anyone.